Hey everybody, here we are with another World of Warships replay, and this time in the Fubuki on fault line. Now this is a good demonstration of how I like to play high-tier Japanese destroyers. In fact, it's pretty much the only way I've successfully figured out how to play high-tier Japanese destroyers. It's a bit hit and miss, but because you lack the excellent gunnery of the American destroyers, you can't really afford to mix it up.
Anti-aircraft guns and secondary armament disabled.
Without further ado, let me introduce you to the concept of torpedo fishing. Since the reload times for torpedoes were drastically improved, thankfully, they were absolutely hideous before, it's now possible to fish for enemy ships basically by shooting torpedoes into obvious places that enemy ships are going to go and seeing what you can catch. Straight away, I know there's going to be battleships coming through that channel there, and I know my torpedoes are probably going to get there in time to at least scare them, if not tag one of them. So I fire one spread, I give it a couple seconds before I prepare to fire another spread. At the same time, I make my turn towards the west. I don't want to cut through the middle, it's a bit too open. So I'll head up the west side, not through the islands, but next to them. There goes my second spread, and my third, and because you can see I got the different angle in there from my little S-turn, I was able to fire down two channels, not just one. And it looks like we might have a potential victim here. This New Mexico is blundering straight out into the open, and the Fusa behind him might catch something as well, so we'll have to wait and see what develops there. In the meantime, the enemy Alba is headed through the western channel. He's heading into 3 destroyers, including myself, and 2 cruisers. It's not going to end very well for him. I was thinking about firing there, but I decided to hold my shots for just a moment longer before letting go. Now, the Alba is actually supported by a Sims, and sure enough, a Fletcher pops up next to the Sims as well. So that's some actually threatening firepower there now, between the 2 US destroyers with their guns and the Alba. You can also see the enemy have a carrier up in the northwest corner. We can actually see one of their carriers right now, the Shikaku, the Japanese Tier 8. I think that's an Essex, looking at the silhouette, is up in the northwest somewhere. In fact, he's actually north, so he's sort of hooked his torque bombers around the west side of the map. Had me fooled. Funnily enough, one torp does go into the New Mexico. Pop my smoke to try and avoid getting obliterated by his guns. New Mexico is quite good at wiping out destroyers because it has so many of them. But it looks like he's actually going to get eaten alive by my second 2 spreads.
Attention, reporting the target position.
And this is why you've really got to pay attention, and when there's one spread of torpedoes, there's almost certainly going to be more, so you can't get complacent. I do pick up some hits there, 2 to be exact. One decent one and one smaller one, both caused flooding. And, oh my, what's happened here? What actually happened was I lost my connection. Not badly enough to drop me out of the game, but badly enough to freeze the game for a few moments. So I was kind of thinking I was going to have my fun spree cut short there, but thankfully not. And now with the improved load time, I'm ready to dump some more torps.
Concentrate fire on the target.
The New Mexico's having cold feet about coming around that island. I wonder why. And so he's turning around. It looks like he's going to go back around the other side of it. Sure enough, he begins turning left. He still wants to come west. He just doesn't want to do it in front of the island. Obviously, he thinks he'll be safer going behind it. Bad news. No, you won't. It's painfully obvious what he's trying to do. And so, predicting his turn, I fire off 2 spreads right around the point of the island where he's not going to have time to see the torps and dodge them. And then I get ready to fire off my final spread a little further along, in case he actually does manage to get past those. team's doing well so far. We did actually outnumber the enemy to start with. So there's that. But the enemy are not exactly making it difficult for us. They're all clustered up in one corner of the map, and they are willingly driving into my torpedoes. Now this looks really good for more hits on the New Mexico here. As I'm rubbing my hands together in anticipation, and yep, there he goes.
Enemy battleship foundered.
Scratch one, New Mexico. What made this even better is what happens in a moment. I get ready to blast off a couple more torps down towards the west, just into this channel, see if the Baltimore will drive into him. Oh look, I just picked up 2 hits on the Fuso. And this is my favourite thing about the high-tier Japanese destroyers, is you'll hit ships you weren't even aiming for because the torpedoes have such a long range, and pubbies are so oblivious. I was thinking here about taking some shots at the Essex, or at the Fuso. I went with the Fuso, and unfortunately he was in mid-turn, so that spread's probably just going to not hit anything. And I am spotted by the enemy torp bombers, so I'm
Anti-aircraft guns
in a
and
pretty grave
secondary
situation
armament
here.
disabled.
If the enemy actually managed to find their aim and hit me. But our other Fubuki, who's still on full health I should point out, is busy dunking on the enemy Shikaku. So us destroyers had a really good time of things this match. It looks like my torps down there didn't end up hitting anything. The Baltimore's currently unspotted, and the... oh no, there he is. Oh look! Oh, how about that? It didn't actually miss. I managed to pick up 1 hit on the Baltimore. Fantastic. There's just something really magical about fishing with torps like this, because you never know if you're actually going to pick up some hits or not. I've actually sunk ships that I didn't even know were there before just because they drove into my torps. They're fantastic. Absolutely fantastic fun. One of our cruisers looses off his own torps at the Colorado. I fire a few of my own, and then begin bombarding the Baltimore with HE. Now, with HE you want to be aiming at the superstructure, higher on the sides of the ship, because first of all there's no armor, second of all there's a lot of things that like to burn, and third of all you're going to be knocking out anti-aircraft and secondary guns. If you aim at the sides of the hull, like the belt armor, with HE you're not really going to be doing anything useful. You need to be aiming high. Converse to AP, where you need to aim as low as possible to the waterline, and aiming high will do nothing. Unfortunately for me, was 1 risk too many. I got too close and ended up paying for it. Meanwhile, none of those torps ended up connecting, but I did pick up 9 hits with my torpedoes. Sunk a battleship from full health, basically, and gave a few others some pretty rude wake-up calls. And this is the kind of play style you need to learn to get used to with the higher tier Japanese